Hello again, everybody. This is Dave from Blox News and Xclusive Collectibles, back for another vintage pack break. Today we're going to be opening 1981 Topps football rag packs. Obviously, this is a big year. This is Joe Montana's rookie year, as well as Art Monk. We have players like Phil Simms, Walter Payton we could find. So hope you enjoy. All right, we're about to open the first of 5 1981 Topps rag packs. Obviously, we want to be very careful. Depending on what the conditions inside are, we don't want to make them worse by dinging up the corners. We're going to go through them in sections. Hopefully we pull that Montana rookie card, Walter Payton, as well as a lot of great other player cards. Alright, here we go with the first section. Alright, here we go. Giants team leaders, 1980 Billy Taylor, Mike Dennis, Gary Jeter, and Ernest Gray. Phil Simms, a little off center. Corners look good. Dave Purifoy. Stan White, Chuck Ramsey. Seahawks team leaders, we've got Jim Jodat, Steve Largent, Dave Brown, John Harris, and Jacob Green. Charlie Joyner, Freddie Solomon super action card. James Owens, John Bunting. Packers team leaders, we've got Eddie Lee Irving, Johnny Gray, Mike Butler, and James Lofton. Gordon Jones. Chargers team leaders, Chuck Muncie, John Jefferson, Glenn Edwards, and Gary Johnson. Randy Hallway. Scoring leaders, Ed Murray and John Smith. And finally, out of the first section, Rag Pack 1, Mark Gastineau. Going after the second section of our rag pack, we got Calvin Hill, Archie Griffin, Robin Earl, Ozzie Newsome with a little name issues, Bruce Lard, Paul Kaufman, Greg Pruitt, Nick Mike Mayer, Greg Landry, Audra Thompson, Pat Thomas, George Martin, Rob Carpenter, Randy Logan, Jack Reynolds, and Lester Hayes. Out of the second section, now section 3 of Rag Pack 1, we've got Donnie Shell, Ricky Thompson, All-Pro Dave Jennings, Johnny Evans, Mark Mosley, Steve Mike Mayer, Gary Ellis, Charles White, Curtis Brown, Mike Bragg, Russell Erskine, Mike Gooman, Danny Pittman, Jack Youngblood, Manu Tuiasosopo, Ed Murray, and Chris Ward out of the first rag pack. Moving along to our second rag pack of 1981 Topps football. Be very careful to not nick the cards. while we open the sections, get to the cards. Alright, we're on the first section. We got Tim Fox, Greg Hawthorne, Tony Hill, Jim Miller, Benny Cunningham, Gerald Small, Joe Lavender, Billy Taylor, All-Pro John Hanna, Dave Butts, Pat Donovan, Bob Parsons, Ken Anderson, Ricky Feature, Clarence Harmon, and Roger Carr, along with Eddie Lee Irving. Next up, second section, John Stallworth, Leroy Selman, Colts team leaders. We've got Curtis Dickey, Roger Carr, Bruce Lard, and Mike Barnes. Gary Jeter, Super Action Kenny King, Wilbur Jackson, Chuck Foreman, Raiders team leaders, Mark Van Egan, Cliff Branch, Lester Hayes, Cedric Hardman, and Ted Hendricks. Morris Towns, NFL interception leader Nolan Cromwell and Lester Hayes. Super Action John Jefferson, Super Action Ernest Gray, Dan Hampton, Benny Ricardo, Len Watershed, Dennis Johnson, and finally out of this one, we've got Super Bowl card. And finally for the third section, we've got Duriel Harris, Luke Prestige, Tom Berhaney, Dan Fouts, that's a good one, Jimmy Giles, Franco Harris, Tony Dorsett, another good one, Steve DeBerg, look at that, Steve Furness, George Roberts, Ted McKnight, Ernest Gray, Donnie Shell, John Smith, Ron Saul, Lamar Parrish, and Mike Hartenstein out of the second rack pack. Moving along to the third rack pack. Obviously still being careful. Alright, we're about to go through the first section. We've got 49ers team leaders: Earl Cooper, Dwight Clark, Jim Stuckey, Rich Churchman, Dwight Hicks, Tony Frisch, Super Action, Kellen Winslow, Bob Kuchenberg, Cliff Branch. Cowboys team leaders: we've got Tony Dorsett, Dennis Thurman, Charlie Waters, Harvey Martin, Tony Hill, Ron Jaworski, Super Action, Leroy Harris, Ron Yeri, Charlie Hall, nice wonderful checklist insert, Archie Manning, Super Action. Vikings team leader: we've got Ted Brown, Ahmad Rashad, John Turner, and Doug Sutherland. Nat Moore, record breaker John Jefferson, Horace Ivory, and Bob Greasy. Next up, we've got Dave Dalby, Kent Hill, Steve Nelson, All-Pro Randy White, Clark Gaines, Pat Tilley, Terry Bradshaw makes his appearance, centering's a little off, Steve Largent, Freddie Solomon, keep teasing us with the 49ers, Tony Franklin, Alfred Jackson, Fred Smerlas, Will Lewis, Bill Linkadis, Ricky Young, and Vernon Perry out of that section. Next up, we've got Luke Prestige, Tom Brahaney, Dan Fouts makes his appearance, Jimmy Giles, Franco Harris, another tornado set. That centering looks pretty good. Steve DeBerg, Steve Furness, George Roberts, Ted McKnight, Ernest Gray, Donnie Shell, Ricky Thompson, Dave Jennings, Vince Evans, Jack Thompson, and Johnny Evans out of that one. Alright, we're on Rack Pack 4. Dan Ross, Rod Martin, Elvin Bethea, All-Pro Mike Pruitt, Matt Blair, Julius Adams, Dennis Hara, Ed Simonini, Rush Brown, Jerry Butler, Junior Miller, Rich Millo, Doug Wilkerson, Nick Lowry, checklist card, Nesby Glasgow. First section. Second section, we have Rick Upchurch, Kellen Winslow, Mark Murphy, James Lofton, Richard Castor, Jim Haslett, Ken Stabler, Archie Manning base card, Bob Chandler, Roy Simmons, Al Richardson, Kenny Johnson, Mark Denard, Matt Robinson, Ken Stone, Harvey Martin, and Tim Fox out of that section. And third, Franco Harris, Tony Dorsett, pretty nice centering. Steve DeBerg, Steve Furness, looks like a repeat of the last pack. George Roberts, Ted McKnight, Ernest Gray, Donnie Shell, Ricky Thompson, Dave Jennings, Vince Evans, Jack Thompson, Johnny Evans, Mark Mosley, Steve Mike Mayer, Gary Ellis, and Charles White. Alright, Phil Simms on the top, little edging issues. Dave Purefort, Stan Walters, Mark Gastineau, Seahawks team leader rushing, Jim Jodet, Steve Largent, Dave Brown, John Harris, and Jacob Green. Charlie Joyner, Super Action Freddie Solomon, Jim LeClaire, Ken Burrow, Johnny Gray, Eddie Lee Ivory, James Lofton, and Mike Butler. Gordon Jones, Glenn Edwards, Charlie Munchie, Chuck Munchie, John Jefferson, Gary Johnson, Randy Holloway, Eddie Murray, and John Smith. Charles Alexander, Robert Brazil, Al Baker, Reggie McKenzie, Raphael Septian, Kevin Long, Steve Barkowski, All-Pro, Don Calhoun, Henry Marshall, Ron Jaworski, Rowan Lawrence, All-Pro Joe Cribbs, Don Warren, Dan Fouts, Mike Barber, Ike Harris, Chris Barr, and Garo Yepani. Next up, Dan Deerdoff, Charlie Smith, Butch Johnson, Gary Daniels, Rick Upchurch, All-Pro Kellen Wilson, Mark Murphy, James Lofton, All-Pro, Richard Castor, Jim Haslett, Ken Stabler, Archie Manning, Bob Chandler, Roy Simmons, Al Richardson, and Kenny Johnson. So there you have it, 5 rack packs, 81 tops. We've got a couple good players. Didn't get all the good players, but now you have an idea what comes out of these rack packs. Hope you enjoyed. Click like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching our video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Click the subscribe button for more videos. Listen and download us on SoundCloud. Visit our site at bloxnews.net and xclusivecollectibles.com for articles, news, collectibles, and help with your website, marketing, and SEO needs. Email us at info@bloxcoinnews.com to learn more.